First Class Fatherhood. That is where Alec Lace comes in with his popular podcast.
And one of the most interesting was on a podcast.
Alec Lace interviews high-profile fathers from actors to NFL players with a vision to change the narrative of fatherhood and family life.
Joining me now, First Class Father, Gabriel Conte. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, I know you're new to the game here, but let's start it like this. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I have one, and she is almost 3 months old.
Very cool. You looking to run it back? You ready for another one, or are we going to hold off for a while?
Listen, I'm trying to convince my wife, but you know, she has more of a say in that than I do at this point in time. Yeah,
right on with that. If you could, Gabriel, please just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Gabriel Conte. I'm a husband, father. My wife's name is Jess. My baby girl's name is Micaiah, and I'm publicly known mostly for my like an influencer, my content on YouTube, a creator, that sort of stuff. So I came up doing Vine videos back in the day. If you remember the Vine app, the short 6-second videos, just being goofy on there and making little skits and stuff. But then that evolved to doing more vlog type stuff on YouTube. And my wife and I, when we met, we started sharing our life on YouTube, and that has kind of progressed into what we are doing today. Just really trying to be authentic and share basically the story of our life through video on our YouTube channel. It's called Jess and Gabriel. And and then since then now I'm now an author. And that's why we're here today. And it's a really weird thing to say, but it's a pretty surreal moment for me with the book and everything.
Yeah, we're going to jump into the book in just a second here too, and I know I watched your delivery video or wherever have you that you put up there on YouTube about the whole process and stuff. And one of the things you say, like in the beginning, of how like you feel like you're still yourself, you're just a dad now, and it's I know I've spoken to quite a few NFL players that talk about when they win the Super Bowl and they get that mic shoved in their face and they're like, "Hey, you're a Super Bowl champion. What's it feel like?" And you're like, "I don't know, it hasn't hit me yet." So sometimes fatherhood is kind of that way. It doesn't really hit us. It hits guys sometimes right away. Sometimes it takes a process. Where are you in that process? How has becoming a dad kind of changed your perspective on life?
It was a really weird, the moment that she was born was very bizarre because I had this expectation that I was going to feel a certain way. And I was trying to they took the baby out and put her on Jess's chest. And I was trying to figure out, like in the moment, I was having all these feelings that, I was just like trying to process everything. And over the course of time of just thinking about it all, it was the first moment that I realized like, oh, this is like my first family member that is an official member of the family that I'm essentially starting like a fresh relationship with, that's just like new, and that was not a pre-existing relationship before. Like my parents were always there, my siblings were always there, even my wife. Like by the time we were married, we had already built up a full relationship. So by the time we were family, we were already in love and knew each other well. And at the point that my daughter was born, we didn't even have a name for her yet. So it was a moment that I was like, I'm meeting this like essentially a stranger for the first time. That's my daughter, and I need to build a relationship with her, and that's going to take some time and effort. And it was like, that was a surreal moment. But now it's it's sunk in a lot more. And after these few months, having her around would be really weird not having her around, so it's definitely like a time thing for sure.
Yeah, very cool. And obviously everything that you do tied into media. You spoke about how you came up with the Vine and the whole bit.
Yeah.
Is it now? I know you're sharing your story through your videos, with your child now and everything. Was there a discussion between you and Jess going into this, whether or not you were going to, some celebrities, some people decide not to put their kids on social media. They don't want to share pictures. Some go all in like you guys are doing. Was there a discussion about, hey, maybe are you looking at the way that you're sharing your personal content now any differently than you did before? Yeah. Are you cautious about sharing so much about your kid's life on social media?
Yeah, we're definitely, we are trying to take the approach where, we still want to share about our life, but we don't want to employ our daughter without her ability to want to be employed, essentially. So, and we're trying to like keep her private enough too. So we'll still like post pictures with her and stuff, but we're trying our best to not, and we're still figuring it out, but we're trying not to just like show her face a whole lot, or maybe if it's just like from the side or something. But we're trying to figure out exactly where our line is going to be and what that is, because it's still pretty blurry right now, but we're just trying to, figure out what's best for our family and then best for her as we think about the future and her growing up. And we don't want to have any like videos or content that she's going to be embarrassed about, down the road or anything like that. So, we're sharing her more so as a family member, not so much as like what our content is about, if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does, yeah, and it is challenging, Gabriel, because number one, this stuff is all still relatively new, and to now be
Hmm.
bringing up a child and doing what you do surrounding that is got to be challenging. But I'll tell you what, it's worth it, because I mean, I talk on this show so much about how we have a fatherless crisis in our country with so many kids
Hmm.
growing up without a dad, and the way that our family units have broken down in this country, it's not celebrated enough. So when somebody with your kind of reach is sharing that fatherhood journey, that family journey, and how it's making your life better, I think it is nothing but a benefit, to us as a society. So props to you for doing that. And I know that
Thank you,
it's got
man.
to be challenging to navigate.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's interesting, but I'm right there with you. I really, my pastor once said one time, the foundation, or what the country is built upon is communities, and what communities are built upon is families. And the family is just so important to just keep tight knit. And fathers really, in our society, I don't think there's enough credit given to fathers a lot, and how much of an impact fathers can really have on their kids. And yeah, I'm just a big proponent of that, and really try and get that message out there. And more so through kind of like sharing our life, and sharing like doing it through story. That's like with my book as well. I wrote it in a story format, and there's like messages I want to share in there, obviously, but I'm more so recounting stories of my life and things that I've gone through. And that's the way I try to approach all of our content on social media as well. That's been our approach all these years, is sharing our life via a story and letting that resonate with people, rather than just trying to like sit there and preach to people.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. And you talk about the book. Let's get into it here. A mission for meaning, the
Yeah.
choices that lead to the life you really want. So, what was the genesis of the book here, and how difficult was it for you to go through all that? You weren't a father yet when the book came out. The dedication as to your wife, the baby is still in your wife's belly at the time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what was the process of going through this book while your wife's pregnant, getting ready for fatherhood, and who is the book for?
Yeah, it was actually pretty crazy. I started the book a little over 2 years ago, the whole process of writing it. And for years, my manager wanted me to write a book. He was like, I really think you have something to say. And I personally didn't feel ready. And he kept, every now and then we check in on it. And for years, I was like, no, I don't think I'm ready to write a book. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I have like enough that I want to say, and I have stuff on my heart that I want to share with people. And but then going to the what you were saying about Micaiah not even being born yet, I started the book probably about like a year and a few months before we got pregnant. And at that point, we were kind of having nearly full versions of the book drafted up at that point. Really rough, but it was getting to that point. And then Jess got pregnant, and that changed so much for me and my perspective. And I was, I had my hands in a lot of stuff. I was really busy, kept myself really busy. And I realized in that moment, like, if I don't pull things back a little bit and change the way I'm doing things now, I won't have time to be a good father come 9 months from now. So at that point was then a point where I was doing heavy revisions and edits on the book. And I was starting to like just reflect so much on even my own past, and me as a child with my father, and what that looked like, and what I want to keep and what I want to change. And so much of that got poured into the book. Even after we had those first few drafts, I started adding so much more into the book, and doing really, really heavy revisions in there. And yeah, just really learning so much about myself, and the way I want to parent, and really who I want to be, because the best thing we can be for our kids is a great example. And I was like, I need to really reflect on myself, and who do I want to be, what kind of man do I want to become, because that's going to be I'm going to be, the first or one of the two first examples between me and Jess that Micaiah is going to be looking at in her life. So that was definitely a big change for me. And the whole book, like you mentioned, with the choices that lead to the life you really want, that stemmed from just this really the word that we kept going back to during the writing process was intentionality. And living an intentional life is something that Jess and I just like intentionality is one of our favorite words. And living very intentionally is something that I've always kind of like talked about and wanted to live out myself. And through in the book, I just through story try and like recount different things that I went through, different failures that I had to walk through, the times that I, ended up adapting from learning from my failures and kind of getting it right. And, figuring out through all the things, the ups and downs in my life, what were the choices that were made and what things did I choose to do that made a big impact to get me to where I am today. And that's really like the message of the whole book is, we're all on this journey to try and find meaning in our lives and try and find purpose, and kind of first zooming out and getting this like big picture view of like, what is the mission that I'm on in my life? And then going from that perspective and then honing all the way down to like, okay, so what does that mean for the choices that I'm making every single day? The small habits I'm building and the small choices that I'm making every single day. How are those things really affecting the big picture mission for my life? Because all of our choices have consequences, whether they're good or bad. All the habits that you have, you're building habits whether you know them or not. They could be good, could be bad, but you're building habits, and you really have to be aware that that's happening. And how are you going to adapt and change or keep things that are good as well, and really like be intentional with all the things that are happening in your life day to day, and making really intentional choices that will have compound interest effect over the course of time.
Yeah, really, really awesome stuff, Gabriel. Again, a mission for meeting. The link is in the description of today's podcast episode, so my listeners can get over there and check it out. But it's so true, and I know I forget the quote that you have right in the beginning of the book, but I know that it's similar to, like, I had Steve Weatherford on the podcast, and he always talks about how life is not happening to you; it's happening for you. And I know yours was something about life coming from you. I think we create our lives, and we just seem to react to what's happening rather than try to change that original source of where everything is coming from. And I think so many times we get it messed up. And like you say, the choices have consequences. And I think the faster we fail in life, the faster we get to where we want to be, because it seems like so many people try to avoid failure when really that seems to be the pathway to success. So the longer we keep avoiding it, the longer it takes for us to get there.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, the faster you fail, the more you'll succeed is pretty spot on, because if you're too afraid to fail and too afraid to jump in, then you're just going to remain stagnant, and really you're going to end up moving backwards in the grand scheme of everything. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that, and making those, choices that are going to affect our life long term.
Yeah. And so what has it been like for you to watch? Listen, one thing I encourage guys, I always encourage young men, have kids, start a family. The younger
Mhm.
you are, the better it is. And especially when you're in a relationship, it really changes the whole dynamic. I mean, you date your wife, and then you marry her, and that really changes the relationship. But having a child, it totally changes the relationship that you have. And it's an experience you can't get until you become a parent. So what has it been like for you to watch your wife, Jess, become a mom and take on that role of motherhood?
Oh, it's been wild. Like seeing her give birth was one of the most. It's been like amazing seeing her, go through just the journey of pregnancy, but then giving birth and going through that, and bringing life into the world was there's just such a new profound respect that um I just can't really put into words. It's really amazing. Like she really just crushed it. No epidural too. She was just, fully dove in there and wanted to make it happen. And I don't know. It's just like the miracle of life all in and of itself is it really is hard to put words to. And seeing her go through the process, and then seeing her as a mother just nurture Micaiah and just take care of her the way she does, is just so amazing. And it really, for me, it made me realize, like, oh man, I was, I not that I was, but I could even live way more selfish. And now it's my life isn't for me, you know. My life is for my child now. Like, I need to. I remember the first night I was like, I can't go to sleep. The baby's gonna die if I go to sleep. That's like literally my thought process. And yeah, it's just like really cool seeing how much it just makes you grow and kind of like points out your flaws a little bit. And I'm sure, once Micaiah's running around and, pushing our buttons a little bit more, it's going to bring a whole new set of things that we need to reflect on in ourselves when we start getting impatient or angry or anything like that. So,
Yeah, and
just
it
going through
definitely
that process is great.
yeah, it gets better with each and every stage that they go through. So it's so much excitement coming your way for sure. And I know you mentioned there your pastor earlier there. How important is your faith, Gabriel, in your life and in raising your daughter? And what would you consider to be some of the top values that you hope to instill in your daughter growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it really gives a guiding compass, like a playbook of sorts to my life, and to what I want to instill in my family and in my children. And a big thing that I really like is kind of seeing the biblical view of family, and seeing a lot of the pros and cons that are exemplified in the Bible, and seeing how that can impact the way I help shape my family, if you will. And it's been really good. In the back of the book, I talk about like our family and the mission statement that we have for our family, but it really helps hone in our family being on a mission together, and kind of having the household as kind of like this headquarters, mission HQ, that then our whole family can go out in the world and then impact people that way, rather than, me kind of having a separate life out of the home with my work or my career or whatever it may be. And then I come home just to kind of like recharge to then go back out and do what I'm doing, and having it all integrated and part of the same, mission, and the things that all the members of the family do outside of the house are, to fulfill that mission that we're all on together. So that's definitely that's something big that I want to, instill in my family, and try and, make a priority for us. And, I'm pretty green to the whole fatherhood thing. So there'll be an update in the future years of, how that goes, and how I've adapted what I've been doing and stuff like that. But
Yeah, well, we all have to be green at fatherhood at some point, so
yeah,
there's no doubt about that. And obviously, listen, I'm green at what you do here, because this social media stuff has really changed the way that we live. And I
yeah,
got my oldest, I got two teenagers in high school. I got my younger guy's 11. He's got a YouTube channel doing the YouTube shorts. Everyone's trying to figure out how to do all
nice.
these things. And I'm a railroad mechanic. I've been doing that for 23 years. So this is something I started up on the side. I've been still trying to learn so much of this stuff. Like you talk about Vine. I wasn't even in the game. I didn't know what Vine was. Like, I didn't know
Yeah,
what half of this stuff was doing. So what kind of advice do you have for the parents out there like myself that have kids that are trying to get onto the social media apps, trying to produce content? What kind of advice do you have to the parents? How would they steer the kids?
yeah. I mean, when it comes to, I guess if you're someone like you who's like personally trying to, make content and do all that, it's one thing that I tell people, because I've been in it for a while now, almost 10 years actually. And what I tell people is that today is much harder than it was if you started yesterday, but today is much easier than it will be if you start tomorrow. So it's, everything is constantly adapting and changing, and things might get more complicated or become more oversaturated. And if you start now, that means you have more time to learn, as you start working on it. And, your first piece of content's probably going to suck. And so are the next like 20, 30, 100 pieces of content. They're probably not going to be good. that's just the nature of it. And you have to refine your craft and get better over time. I think the scary part is that it is public. When you post something, it is out there for the world to see, and that, you'll have opinions and people saying whatever about your content. But if you know what it is you want to be doing and the kind of content you want to be posting, it's going to get better over time. And now I know, like for my content now, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I, post something, I know if I'm like really proud of it or not, or if it's a great piece of content. But, that's after nearly 10 years of doing this. So yeah, that's my one encouragement for, if you're a parent wanting to try and get into the game or anything like that. But then, for kids as well, if you're, a young kid who's like looking to try and make content and, I guess make a name for yourself and start your own career on social media and on YouTube or whatever it may be. Yeah, the same thing. Just there's so many people that talk about starting and talk about the kind of content they want to make or whatever it may be, but you really just have to take action and do it. It's really what it comes down to. And, especially when you're a kid, like in middle school or high school, you might have people making fun of you, and it might be tough because they're your friends at school and you have to see them every day, or, even if they're not your friends, but just people at school who, stumble across your channel and, start teasing you about it. But yeah, it's, I guess just knowing the bigger picture of where you want to go and having kind of like that vision and mission in mind. It makes it a lot easier to stay on track than just like, oh, I want to post YouTube videos. And then, the one comment you get is the kid from school that doesn't like it. And you're like, oh, no one likes my YouTube videos. Knowing where you want to go kind of is able to, I guess, light that fire under your butt or give you that steam to kind of keep going, because what you're doing is not to please that one person and their opinion about you, that might be negative. It's for the bigger picture of where you want to take things.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said, Gabriel. Yeah. And in the middle school, they'll tease you a little bit, but I can tell you this, when you work for the railroad, they break your balls when you start doing stuff like this. There's no doubt about that. And
I bet,
obviously
man.
you got the book, A Mission for Meaning, out now,
Yep.
available now. Link is in the description of the podcast episode. What's next for you? I know you got the 3-month-old at home. What kind of projects, what goals, what's coming up next for you here?
Yeah, I mean, my big picture goals, when I started on Vine, I was actually in acting school then, and that's always been a thing. I grew up doing theater, so that's just been a big part of my, life is performing in that way. And, I fell in love with film and TV from a really, really young age, and really trying to lean into, and I'm still figuring that out, like I don't have it all together, but I'm trying to figure out where to take that part of my career, because I've done acting gigs in the past, and I lived in LA for 5 years, kind of doing that whole thing. So I do have that experience, but I'm trying to, lean into the digital market isn't going anywhere, and it's just continuing to get bigger. And, but I do really like I love scripted, film and TV movies are just, it just resonates with me. I don't know what it is. So I'm trying to figure out what that looks like for my career and how I can maybe, not so much merge the two, but how they can both work together, the content that I'm making and the career that I want to continue to pursue in film and television, to kind of complement each other in that way, instead of it just being a completely separate, I make vlogs about my life, also I'm trying to audition for a movie. There's definitely a crossover there that I'm still trying to figure out, and that's kind of the journey that I'm going to be on in the future. That's like more of a long-term thing of figuring out, how to achieve those goals of potentially making my own movies one day, and shows or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's where I'm
Well,
headed.
yeah, well, the sky is the limit. No doubt you'll crush what's coming next with the success you've had so far. So props to you for what you're
Thank you,
doing. I
man.
love what you're all about. So last thing I want to hit you with here, Gabriel, I know you're new to the game here, but I love to ask all the dads I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for the other new dads out there, or for those about to be fathers who are listening in?
Oh yeah. Help your wife when she needs help. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, because I can often get so preoccupied with whatever it may be that I don't know, if it's work or I don't know, just even like I started watching a YouTube video and I'm just focused on that, and I zone out and, don't hear my wife, dealing with a baby. So just trying to be more intentional with helping her, when, like I can't breastfeed, but when she's done, I need to be there and be like, okay, can I burp the baby for you, or whatever it may be. So that sort of thing. And I even right now, seeing how that was kind of affecting me, I deleted YouTube off of my phone just so I wouldn't get caught up on, because I found myself, it was a bad habit that I found myself doing, is like I would take a break from whatever it is I was doing, and then I just like sit down and open YouTube and be like, oh, okay, what can I watch to kind of like pass the time? And I realized that was keeping me from helping Jess when I could have helped her in those moments of free time that I had, whether it was between work or even in the evening, between whatever it was that we're doing at the time. So that's, yeah, I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's my one piece of advice, is figure out the best way that you can help your wife with a baby.
Yeah, I love the message. This has been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Gabriel Conte, you're a first-class father all the way. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here at First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you.
You have been listening to First Class Fatherhood. First Class Fatherhood is a family-made media podcast. Please visit www.firstclassfatherhood.com or www.familymade.com to find out more details. You can order First Class Fatherhood advice and wisdom from high-profile dads on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Proverbs 22:6 tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will never depart from it. God bless, and I'll catch you next time.